Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Williams from Martin Bluff Elementary. I'm a fourth grade teacher, and today I'm going to be reviewing with you context clues. So, sometimes when you're reading a story or an article, you'll come across a word you don't know. When you don't know the meaning of a word, often you can figure it out by looking at the words and sentences around it. When you do this, you are using context clues. So if there is a word in a passage that you don't understand, you can look for clues around that word to try to figure out what it means. There are many different types of context clues. The first type is a definition in the text. For example, in high school, Jim Lovell built his first rocket, which is a jet engine that could fly to great heights. So this part of the sentence, a jet engine that could fly to great heights, is giving the definition of the word rocket. Another kind of context clue is an example that will give you a clue about the word's meaning. Lovell's first attempt was a failure. His rocket flew into the air, but then exploded and crashed. If something explodes and crashed, it is probably a failure. That's an example of a failure. Another kind of context clue is a restatement. A restatement happens when the word is discussed in a way that makes its meaning clear. A rocket is pushed upward by materials that are combustible. These materials burn and release gases. So any material that burns and releases gases can be classified as combustible. Okay, I'm going to read this paragraph to you, and then we are going to talk about the underlined words and determine what they mean by looking for context clues. Jim Lovell had always been fascinated by rockets. He was interested in learning everything about them and even built his own rocket. Lovell applied to the United States Naval Academy, but was rejected. After failing to get into the academy, Lovell did not give up. He persisted or kept trying and finally succeeded. After the academy, he joined the NASA space program. Okay, our first underlined word is fascinated. So I'm going to go ahead and type it over here. And we are going to read it again and try to find a context clue that tells us what the word fascinated means. Jim Lovell had always been fascinated by rockets. He was interested in learning everything about them and even built his own. So if Jim is fascinated by rockets, what does that mean? That means that he is interested in them. So fascinated means you are interested in something. Okay? Our next underlined word is rejected. Find that sentence. Lovell applied to the United States Naval Academy, but was rejected. After failing to get into the academy, Lovell did not give up. So if Lovell was rejected, did he get into the academy? No, the context clue here is the word failing. This means he did not get into the academy. So I'm going to put failing over here, and I'm also going to put that rejected is the opposite of accepted. So he was not accepted into the academy. Okay, my last underline word is persisted. Okay, let's read that sentence. He persisted or kept trying and finally succeeded. So if he persisted, that doesn't mean that he gave up. The next part of the sentence tells us that he kept trying. So persisted means kept trying. Okay, make sure you have those written down on your lines if you are working in your packet. All right, I'm going to read this next paragraph to you, and then we are going to use context clues to figure out the meanings of the underlined words. NASA chose Lovell to command the Apollo 13 space mission. Lovell was in charge of 2 men and of making all final decisions. After they were in space for a little more than 2 days, Lovell and his crew ran into trouble. One of the oxygen tanks blew up. The explosion caused a leak in another tank, and now there wouldn't be enough oxygen for a moon landing. Lavelle and his crew had to return to Earth. Their safe return was due to Lavelle's capable leadership. Okay. Question 1 says, what does the word command mean? So I'm going to go back to the text and I'm going to read the sentences and the words around the underlined word command. It says, NASA chose Lavelle to command the Apollo 13 space mission. Lavelle was in charge of 2 men and of making all final decisions. So the context clue here is in charge. Lavelle was chosen to command or be in charge of the Apollo 13 space mission. So what does command mean? To study, to fly with others on, to be at the head of, or to be part of. If you were in charge or leading somebody, then you were at the head of something. So the answer is C. Number 2. What words help you understand the meaning of command? So what were the context clues in the paragraph that we read? Well, I read you the first sentence. He was chosen to command the Apollo 13 space mission. The next sentence says he was in charge of 2 men and of making all final decisions. We know that being a leader and commanding something, the words in charge are the context clues for this question. So the answer is A. Number 3, what does the word explosion mean? Well, let's look at that sentence. The explosion caused a leak in another tank, and now there wouldn't be enough oxygen for a moon landing. It says the explosion caused a leak in another tank. Well, let's go ahead and read the sentence before that. One of the oxygen tanks blew up. The explosion caused a leak in another tank. So what does explosion mean? A leak, a bursting of something, a lack of oxygen, or leaving outer space. I'm also going to think about what I already know about explosions. Maybe you played a game or seen a movie where there was an explosion. An explosion is B, a bursting of something. Number 4, what does the word capable suggest about Lavelle as a leader? Okay, let's read the last couple sentences. Lavelle and his crew had to return to Earth. Their safe return, so they returned safely, it was due to Lavelle's capable leadership. Does this mean he's a gentle and patient leader? He is skillful at leading others? He is harsh to those he leads, or he is weak when leading others? If Lavelle was able to lead his crew back to Earth safely, then that probably means he was skillful or talented at it. So the answer is B. He is skillful at leading others. Whenever you're reading a story or a passage, make sure you are trying to look for context clues for words that you might not know what they mean.